If there's one gacha game that's often regarded as one of the best by the majority of the community, and one that I have not played yet despite being one of the most requested to this day, then I probably don't need any introductions to this tower defense style gacha that pretty much everyone watching this video has already played. Now in the upper echelon of the genre, and possibly even reaching mainstream levels of popularity, I figured the global 5.5 anniversary was as good of a time to get started than ever. So finally, today is the day. My name is Psyche, and as someone that typically doesn't play tower defense games, I tried out Arknights for around a month. While this is not a formal long review, I'm going to be going over my thoughts on the overall game, such as the gacha, story, gameplay, and so on, and giving my opinions on the good aspects of the game and parts that are not so good. After 30 days, I finally have a taste of what everyone has been talking about, and so people stop bothering me about this. So let's get started. Did you know that to this day, the global release of Arknights does not have an official PC port yet? While I enjoyed a good chunk of it on my tablet, there's nothing quite like experiencing it on the big screen. I recorded a lot of the footage for this video using the MuMu emulator. MuMu Player 5.0 is a free Android emulator and is one of the few, if not the only one, that does not contain any ads. It is a lightweight and highly modular system that provides many built-in and custom features, such as key binding and various performance modes. You can set the amount of processing power it draws, and the resolution can be scaled up to 1440p. I know that emulators can be a little hit or miss for some people, but I found MuMu Player to be the most stable among the ones I've used so far, not to mention providing the best performance. A good chunk of footage for this video was recorded using the emulator, and there was not a single time during the month I played where I experienced bugs or lag spikes. To speak from personal experience, back when I was reviewing Love and Deep Space, MuMu Player was the only emulator that ran the game at an acceptable frame rate. Nothing else quite came close for me. To try out MuMu Player 5.0 and start your ad-free gaming experience, be sure to use my affiliate link in the description or pinned comment to download it for free today. Thank you to MuMu Player for sponsoring the video, and now, let's get back to it. So before going into Arknights, I had a number of pre-existing biases. For one, I heard mixed things about its story. Some people say it's the peak of humanity, and some thought it was a little inconsistent. To my understanding, the writing can be absolutely amazing in many areas, but not all of them. There was even a case where one of the writers in Larian Studio, the developers for Baldur's Gate, praising the writing in Arknights. I know there's like a library's worth of content to go through, however, unfortunately, Arknights also falls into the unexplainable phenomenon where the story only picks up quite a decent way from the beginning, and this is something I like to call early gacha story syndrome. From what I understood, the story will slightly pick up in Chapter 5, and Chapter 6 is considered a landmark point in its narratives. So I just kind of read summaries for Chapters 1 to 4. Now, given that the game is one of the biggest gacha games of all time, there's a few reasons I never bothered checking it out until now, despite me memeing on this topic a few times in the past. Thank God, Arknights Enfield is not a tower defense. The main reason I never played Arknights before is that I just don't really like tower defense gameplay. It's as simple as that. The only TD game I was a serious fan of was Plants vs. Zombies. I've heard a lot of recommendations on the game, mainly due to how there's no RNG relic system, dupes are stat-based with a high skill ceiling and gameplay, so I thought, might as well. The game is developed by Hypergriff and launched in 2019, and I heard the lead of the game back then formerly worked for Mika team on Girls Frontline. I mean, yeah, the art style checks out. Regarding the gameplay, most tower defense games, or those with turn-based or real-time strategy, may not look too flashy on the surface. You can't really wow someone that has never played before, unlike something such as a 3D brawler. It's only when you understand what's happening that will make you go, holy shit, that's an insane play. This video assumes that most people watching have played or are playing Arknights themselves. As such, I will not be going over the fundamentals of its gameplay. This is not a formal long review of Arknights, and I don't think one is ever coming out, just due to the sheer amount of content you have to go through and the expectations on how much coverage you are supposed to provide given the size of the player base. Just think of this as a first impressions video, even though I did play it for around a month. I went into the game with a set goal in mind, and that's sort of the bar that was agreed upon by myself and others' suggestions. I will play up until Chapter 6. Use any tools at my disposal, use any cheese methods I can find, but I will not look up any guides or tutorials for specific levels. As a non-tower defense enthusiast, this is how I was gonna sorta challenge myself and see how far I can get. Well, that was the original plan at least. This part of the commentary was recorded a few days before release. Turns out tower defense burnout took place sooner for me. I know I can start working towards Elite 2s, except I just kinda lost the motivation. I beat Chapter 6 with supports. I will be reading it online though. The critiques in this video is from someone that has played the game for only a month, that didn't really interact with the late game content, and the one that busted through the story campaign with supports. I mean, you saw the title of this video, take it or leave it. I basically ran with a single team lineup with some small variations, but I don't know anything about strategic placements, which skill to use and at what time. However, I did experience a bunch of eureka moments where I just had to readjust my strategy a little bit to beat the level. Oh, I just had to spam more healers, why didn't I think of that? One of the biggest praise I can give is that the classes actually feel distinct, like they're expected to function differently and are more suited at some levels or when deployed at certain times. Like how the Vanguard units are cheap and can generate deployment points, perfect as the frontrunners in a level. I feel as if it's precisely because Arknights is a tower defense that these different characters can shine. I know the game will have consequences of power creep given that it's been live for more than 5 years, and something that was brought to my attention is that certain older units can still fulfill a certain niche effect, so when that niche is particularly useful, they can still be brought out to assist. It felt like the game encouraged you to build wide instead of tall. Given that upgrades can get exponentially more expensive, you can spare the same resources to raise another operator, as I found what they do is way more important than raw stats. Of course, you do get a lot of benefits from upgrading and ascending operatives, but just like Reverse 1999, you typically don't need to max out everything unless you're a nuthead for min-maxing. Arknights is a gacha where the highest rarity is 6 stars, with the most of the lower rarities being fodder, but they are quite usable in the early game. Not only do they get less stats from less ascensions, their skills are also fairly basic. Of course, I've seen some crazy people do challenge runs with them too. Definitely not me though. I know of a better strategy. It's called overleveling. Another selling point of Arknights is that there's no weapon gacha banner type, you just pull for characters. Since the game released in 2019, it also managed to avoid the Genshitification of gacha games, meaning that there is no RNG relics, and the dupe system only gives stat upgrades. Granted, I've talked about gearing systems in detail in a previous video, but whether or not you prefer an RNG gearing system is completely preferential. I can say this. The amount of grind and time you will have to spend to max out one operative should be roughly around the same as getting a full set of viable artifacts in Genshin. Gacha games are in nature live service and will need to take up a certain amount of time before you can say that you have completed a character build. The process to get there is up to you to decide which way you prefer, so I'll just say that I don't think it makes sense to say that objectively speaking, having a vertical grind instead of RNG relics is better. They're gonna claw back the time you would have spent to grind artifacts some other way. I experienced this quite a lot starting from Chapter 5 and 6. I was made aware that I'm holding some good units. The problem is that some of them require Elite 2 to unlock their full potential. Basically their second ascension. The materials grind in this game is pretty brutal as I found out a bit later, especially for new players. I will give praise to the dupe system though. I do prefer a stat-based system rather than having full passives unlocked. It feels more fair and it feels like you have access to the operator's full kit when you get them with one copy. Now, of course, when you get to late game challenge content, I'm just saying, you know, that reduction in deployment costs can definitely matter a little bit. Now, I went into the game and made this video without looking up any guides or walkthroughs. The hints I was given are who were good units and which skills to prioritize leveling, but I didn't know why they were good. For example, I was recommended to raise Myrtle as a 4-star. I played her for the first time and I realized, yeah, she's pretty good. I kinda wanted to see just how far a non-tower defense enjoyer like myself can get without any external help. Arknights is one of those gachas where the story content actually poses somewhat of a challenge. So I originally thought I was gonna have some trouble. I got through Chapter 5 and most of Chapter 6 fine, but I definitely felt moments where I struggled a little bit or had to restart to see what the level gimmick is all about. There's a surprising amount of skill expression as is complemented by the distinct classes, and how the level progresses can impact how you play. Even the farming stages actually pose challenges with their own unique twists. While you can clear the stage with a friend's support and still get 3 stars, you just don't unlock auto farming for that stage. I thought this was an ingenious way to nudge you to clear it based on what you had. I can't believe they copied this mechanic from Path to Nowhere. If you do unlock auto farming, the game will lock in your previous loadout you used to beat it, then run back the same steps you took in the successful attempt. You can take over, and to my understanding, it actually runs a simulation of the level, and not a simple playback, meaning that for some reason, if there's enough deviation, you can actually fail. It's the same thing as games like Epic 7 or Etheria Restart. One quality of life that might be possible is to let the game farm for you in the background while you do other things. Plus, if you ever fail an auto battle attempt, it just halts your entire session. Whereas in other games with this system just lets you continue but will mark it as a failed attempt. Aside from some specialized sweep tickets, there's no full sweep feature in this game, so you will have to let the game play back those farming stages by itself to spend stamina. I can't believe they copied this mechanic from Reverse 1999. Resource farming stages are locked to certain days of the week. Why? Why is this a thing? Oh boy, it's time to wait until Wednesday so I can farm those space upgrading materials. This is gonna be so much fun. Just make all the stages available at all times. This literally serves no purpose except to create artificial barriers. Just stop. The base management mode was also a doozy to figure out. I'm sure there's ways to optimize the output of resource generation, except with the limited roster I had, I've kind of found it to be a chore. Granted, there's plenty of quality of life features in place, such as team presets, quick swap, and one-click collect all buttons. Well, at least this is where you can put your low rarity units to work by shoving them in your sweatshop. I took a brief peek at some events and late game modes, though I'm pretty sure I've seen nowhere near enough to get an educated opinion on it. I beat some levels and tried to grind for some event currency, except when I've tried to auto-farm it the next day, every attempt failed, and I'm not quite sure why, even though it worked perfectly fine the day before, so I just kinda gave up on the event this time around. I know with typical gacha games, you want to farm the event stages as it gives more value if you trade it in the respective shop. Generally, I find with older era gachas, you're not going to be able to clear out events efficiently as a beginner, so I was perfectly fine with letting this one go. Moving on to the gacha system, I've heard many things here as well. I'm aware that most of the operators enter the standard pool after a certain amount of time has passed, and that older operators do get buffed in some way in order to counterbalance power creep. There's a recruitment feature where you can use these vouchers to obtain a random operator of your specified requirements, basically like doll construction from GFL. I played the game for around a month, and I gotta say, I have not seen a single 5-star come out of this, so imagine it's just there to create more fodder. For the rate up banners, the base SSR drop chance is 2%, pretty average if you ask me. The rate up chance is the classic 50% coin flip. The soft pity for any SSR is 50 pulls, so I'll assume a guarantee at 70. But the absolute hard pity for the rate up SSR is 150 pulls, meaning that it's possible to lose the coin flip twice. Since the number of tokens per pull is a whopping 600, which is the highest I've seen in a gacha game so far, I have to calculate the worst case scenario to guarantee a rate up SSR of your choice is 150 pulls, as the game displays. Meaning you'll need 90,000 Urundum. Quite a steep cost. Here's my personal observation from someone that has started during the 5.5 anniversary. I did quite like the Annie celebrations where I got a free 6-star selector and a healthy dose of gacha pulls. However, if you ask me if the game is generous with pulls in its normal state, my answer is actually gonna be a no. I think the gacha is just average, and I think that's fine. The pull income can get you a decent amount of spins on the slot machine, but consider that there's only a hard pity at 150 pulls, it doesn't matter how many SSRs you get before that. Even if you land 10 6-star operatives, you can still lose the coin flip all of those 10 times. The 150 mark is what ultimately matters. I bought a round of the 30-day supply and it only gave me 6,000 tokens, which is only enough for a 10 pull. Considering that you need a ceiling of 150 pulls to get a rate up SSR, that's really not a lot. Plus, the event shop only gave 3 pull tickets. However, I do think that it's acceptable the gacha is designed this way, as there's no separate gear or weapon banner type in the game. Once again, just because a gacha doesn't have a weapon banner, it doesn't make it objectively better. It's going to claw back the resources you would have spent on some weapon banner pulls some other way, and this gacha system is one way to do it. On the other hand, I will give praise for its very generous income for skins and premium currency. It's the only gacha game I've seen where you can actually earn the paid currency in-game by 3-starring levels. Imagine that you can obtain Genesis crystals in Genshin. So if you're a fan of collecting cosmetics, Arknights will give you a lot of freedom there. It's realistically possible to collect the majority of cosmetic items in the game without paying. This includes some earnable ones in the event shop. The presentation, I feel, is going to be a bit hit or miss for the general modern gacha audience. There's no voice acting nor live 2D animations. You can praise the quality of writing, and it's the style that I prefer too, considering that I spent a decent chunk of my college days reading visual novels. I'm saying that as the general mobile gaming audience, especially in 2025, you're expecting more effort put into the presentation of the story, whether that may be carefully choreographed scenes, quality voice acting, or flashy visuals. How many people will be okay with looking at static sprites for hours on end, especially if they're not sure if there's actually a payoff to the story they're reading? I will get invested into Arknights lore at some point, I just don't know if that's going to be in the game or I'll just read it online or something. This is the part where I throw the most amount of critiques and why ultimately some of these are going to be deal breakers for me. Now, even if Arknights is a perfect game, I still most likely wouldn't have stuck around, as tower defense is just one of those genres I don't find interesting to play. This is my own preference and a me problem. There are absolutely parts of my gameplay or strategy that can be improved, except I just don't have the motivation to learn them. The closest game I can compare Arknights to is Reverse 1999. Also no RNG relics, an ascension-based leveling system, where your level resets back to 1, SSRs entering the standard pool after a certain amount of time has passed, the same auto-farming feature, and even character dubs where they speak in native accents. Although, I do have to give a quick shout out to Arknights for letting you switch the language per operator. That's a cool detail. Nearing the end of the month I played Arknights, I remember that Reverse 1999 was having a collab with Assassin's Creed, so I re-downloaded it to compare its features. I soon realized that I just prefer a lot of the mechanics more in Reverse 1999. First up is the auto farm. In Arknights, you have to run back each level for every instance of stamina spent. If you ran 6 times worth of stamina, then the level has to be replayed 6 times. This is not to mention that for whatever reason, the attempt can fail if there's enough deviation. You cannot let it farm in the background while you do something else, like in Epic 7 or Etheria. And if the attempt fails, your entire farming session gets terminated, instead of just being counted as a fail and continuing with the rest of the runs. Reverse 1999 avoids this by making the playback a carbon copy of how your original attempt went. Not only can you refine it if you took less turns in future runs, regardless of how much stamina you spent up to 4 times, the playback only happens once. I understand there's probably ways that you can reduce the chance of failure, except I just don't get why this has to be an issue when it's not in Reverse 1999. It's in a way giving you the chance to just go AFK, except that it's possible the farming attempt fails, and you'll have to babysit it. The time-gated resource stages is also something I just don't like, and I think it makes perfect sense to just remove this barrier. If I want to farm Vanguard skill chips on a Friday, just let me. Another minor nitpick is that if you're missing a specific material for an upgrade, the game will tell you where you can farm it. In Reverse 1999, whether you craft the material or farmed it in the level, there'll be a small button to letting you go back to whatever character you were upgrading. It's a seamless transition to make it a better experience. However, in Arknights, no such thing, at least not yet. You have to either go back through the menus or use the quick navigate to your roster, then find the operative you are working on. This is certainly a small thing to comb over, but these small things can add up. In my eyes, Arknights came up with the foundation, Reverse 1999 refined it. In other words, I think Arknights still lacks some quality of life, which I didn't expect since the game is over 5 years old. Overall, I do like many aspects of Arknights, and I would firmly place it on the upper echelon of gacha games. I like that the story content gets gradually challenging to encourage skill expression. I like how diverse the classes feel to play, as they actually serve their own dedicated purpose, rather than just being a slight variation as a damage dealer. I like how 3 starring levels gives the premium currency needed to buy the skins, meaning it's technically possible to get a good chunk of all the cosmetics for free. I like how expansive the world is, with loads of side content to go through, with some of its writing praised even by AAA developers. I overall like just how distinct its designs and actually encourage you to think where to go with your team roster. However, I'm not sure if I see a scenario where this becomes one of my ongoing games, but I will be paying close attention to the story. Luckily, Enfield is not a tower defense, so when that comes out, I'll be sure to give that a fair shot too. Anyways, that goes it for my experience of Arknights. Let me know what you think of my analysis. If you want to catch more gacha-related content, you know what to do. If you wish to go the extra mile, you can support for what I do for as little as $2 a month on Patreon. As always, thank you for watching, spend moderately, and have fun out there.